All right, day 79 of the 100-day project, and I am in the midst of several different things. What I played for you just now was existing tracks for Flavor Crystals, which I've had forever and ever. I haven't really had it, I've just had it in my mind, and I kind of demoed it probably, I'm going to say 10 or 11 years ago. So it's great to see that coming together. What I'm working on right now also is coordinating a bunch of my projects, which occurs to me is not altogether different from the way a lot of people have to coordinate their projects in their lives. And there's a great saying from one of my very favorite musicians, Mr. Geddy Lee, and I'm not even sure he said it, I just heard him quote it, and that is that no recording project that is ever really complete. It's just finally abandoned, which is kind of a downer and kind of a hopeless mindset. But when you're on the clock, which I am in a few different cases, you kind of have to weigh where you're at versus getting it on the road in the fashion and along the timeline that you said your project was going to be done. So with the projects that I have, the Flavor Crystals project, which is part of the Spacebar Cantina project. Today I was editing a piece with 69 vocals, and I realized I left out a whole section, which means I need to sing 6 more vocal lines, etc., etc. I'm starting to have to take kind of a step back and say, okay, I need to compartmentalize. How am I going to get this done in the time frame that I said it was going to be done and still have as much possible quality, without sounding like I worked too hard to make it, because that's a big deal too. Some of the music that I put out years and years ago, I worked so hard to make it that it just sounds like I worked really hard, and it just doesn't have a great vibe. So this strikes me as it's not altogether different than most people have to live their lives. We all have cars that need to be cleaned, dishes that need to be done, houses that need to be kept or unkempt, as the case might be. And what came to me last night was, in looking at a room that I have that is quite cluttered, I thought, you know what? I need to just break this down into parts, which seems like a no-brainer, right? I'm looking at this room. I'm going to give myself 30 little blocks of time, tiny little blocks of time that aren't going to make me want to throw up when I imagine trying to have to clean this whole room up. And I realized I only need 12 blocks of time to really get this room cleaned so I can move on to my son's room again, which I'm sure none of you face. So I bring this up because I have to come back to this. I take on a lot of projects and I'm like, oh, I just really want to do this, so I'll take this on. And I'm not even really super regretful of that, because I like doing a lot of stuff all at once. That way I can take breaks from one thing, move to another, and come back and objectively look at what I was just working upon. Because if I don't, I will oftentimes have myself in a position where I'm missing something big, timing, pitch, whatever. You'd be amazed. I can even be looking at music that is on a grid and not be able to hear where the down is, because I've listened to it so many hundreds of times that I'm just not hearing straight anymore. So I need the time to keep myself sane so that I can put out a good, solid product. I need blocks of time to be able to clean a room. I need little blocks of time to be able to organize and keep my son's schedule on track. So really, people who make music, guys, girls, groups, whatever, are not radically different from people who end up working what they might feel are more ordinary jobs. It's a matter of really juggling what you have to do and being able to inject as much quality in a given time frame as possible. Now I have other stuff where I'm not in anyone's time frame, and I let things drag out for years, and I just keep singing stuff until it's either so homogenized that it sounds terrible and nobody gets to hear it, or I finally get it right. So, and for me, those are more passion projects, and I have some of those too. So I'm bringing this up because I do have about, I don't even know, I'm going to say 11 different projects that are really going to need to be taking flight by the middle of July. And that's just the way it is. And I'm sure many of you, whether you play music or you've never played a note in your life or have no desire to play a note in your life, have dozens of things going on too, and you have to compartmentalize, and some things are not really completed. They're just finally abandoned. So anyway, that struck me as kind of a cool quote. I'm going to play you now some of the additional percussion I'm doing for Flavor Crystals. It's kind of a mid-song breakdown. I had a real cool kind of reggae fusion groove going on, and then the middle that's going to break down into this weird sequence of percussion and then come back into the main groove. So here that is. All right, so that's where I'm at with Flavor Crystals, and it's about where I'm at for 11 to 15 other pieces of music. So anyway, I just thought I found it interesting that regardless of where you're at in life and what your work involves, a lot of us end up having to compartmentalize and balance out projects that get finished versus finally abandoned. And maybe finally abandoned isn't such a bad thing. It can actually be a good thing because you finally just said, this is done. This is on the road. Within the time frame of allotted, I have injected as much quality into this whatever as is possible. So that's my life for day 79 or whatever this is of the 100-day project. Thank you for tuning in. I got a lot more to do, and I'll bring it to you as I am able. Have a fine evening, and farewell, friends.